All right, happy to have this next gentleman on the Sports Card Nation guest line. He's been a part of this program before, but it's been a couple years, and I tell you the truth, I didn't even realize it till I kind of looked it up, and much too long. So time to have him back on, and great guy doing great content in his own right. Brett McGrath of Stacking Slabs, welcome back.
John, thanks for having me. Time flies when you're having fun. Even though it's been a couple years, I definitely tune into Sports Card Nation and enjoy all the conversations you have, especially when Dr. Beckett's on. I always find his insight always gives me something new to think about. But what I like about this is you were doing this before I started, and you're still doing it now. And I love not only creators being here and creating and sharing thoughts and their opinions and bringing on guests, but just the longevity and consistency. So Sports Card Nation's been an institution for quite a while, and glad to be a part of it today.
Well, thank you, and that's just another way of saying I'm old, and you're right. I can't deny it. My birth certificate gives me away. No, I appreciate it. All joking aside, and you're right. Whenever I have Dr. Jim on, and I've known him a while, and he's a friend, and I know you know him. It's he makes you think. He sees it from a different angle, and he's like after I talk with him, I'm like, how come I like that was like you made that seem so easy? How come I didn't see it? Like you almost kind of second guess yourself, but that's just he's done this a long time. He's a brilliant guy, and that's just the genius of Dr. Jim. And so yeah, no doubt that's why he's a great guest, right? Is because he makes you look at it from a different perspective. And listen, you likewise, right? You're very intelligent. You've been in this. You're not new to the hobby. Like you said, you started after me. It wasn't like that far after me, so you're in that OG category as well. And that category there's a lot of shows now, comparatively speaking, 4 6 years ago when we started and whatnot. Well, kind of we'll start off there, Brett. Like, is that good? Is that bad? Is it'll just shake itself out? Will people just listen to shows they enjoy and the proof sort of in the pudding? Is that really is it as simple as that?
I think I often say this, like I create a lot of content and have a ton of conversations, as do you, John, and share those out publicly and just go through this cycle of constantly doing it. But on the other side of it, I'm probably just as big of a consumer of content in the hobby. I go on a lot of walks, run, and I'm always listening to hobby podcasts. And I'll tell you this, like I'll listen to other podcasts outside of hobby podcasts, but when there are new hobby podcasts available, they're always the ones that I want to listen to first. And I just think like the diversity of voices, opinions, different flavors of the hobby, like even if it's something that I don't do or don't collect and someone's covering it on the podcast, I try to listen because it makes me more informed. And so I think what I've noticed over this stretch of talking into a microphone to collectors for so long is that a lot of people will start projects, but it's really hard to keep them going. And I think the creators that continue to keep their podcast going have a passion, and usually that passion shines through. So I always encourage any listeners, like if you have a unique angle or something you want to talk about, like start a podcast, and I'll listen to it. I'll definitely listen to it. But yeah, it's as you know, it's not easy to keep the ship going for a long time. But yeah, it's been fun, and always appreciate new shows to listen to. You're on mute, John.
Yeah, well said. And I was saying, you look at yourself and you look at myself. You know who's doing more running and more walking. That's more apparent, and listening to probably more content because of that. So, but no, there's just so much. The hobby's just so diverse as well, like you said, that there is room for content that's kind of being done different. And I've stayed sort of true. I've changed things here and there. I talked to you even before we went live and told you, you know, we went even double episodes here with guests instead of one big long one, just for just from listener feedback, and just, you know, for my schedule too, to full transparency. It's made kind of my job, I don't even want to say job, but made my life a little bit easier in kind of scheduling these out and getting folks on. But yeah, you know, you know, it's and no matter what you collect, there's probably a show that pertains to it. And I want to segue into a part of the hobby you're a part of and very familiar with, and that's the wrestling hobby and wrestling in general, right? I just had about a month ago Drake Magruder, I know he's a friend of yours, on. I had Adam Gelman on in the past, and the one thing I even though I'm not a wrestling card guy, you don't have to be to see how tight knit that community and how passionate that community is. Uh, I'd even say, like, I don't know if you agree with it. I know it's a smaller segment, but they seem even closer than other sports hobby communities. I guess two pronged, right? Am I right? And what do you attest that to?
I think there's a nature of it's kind of like a startup category in a way, and when you're forming and you're growing, you tend to know everybody or most people, and you know what the types of cards or wrestlers or products that those collectors in the community collect, and there's a sense of wanting to help those individuals out. I'm not gonna there's competition, right? There's competition in other categories, but I think the shared passion, which for many wrestling card collectors comes from childhood, is something that people are able to connect on. I'll also say you mentioned Gelman. Like, there's individuals in the space who've been organizers, and sometimes it takes individuals who are super passionate and have a voice and are want to create content. And I think, like, we are in this era where we're moving towards like more focus in niche content for specific categories, and Gelman has really been the leader of that for the wrestling card community. I'm a member of his Patreon group, Main Event, and I get an email regularly that new article, new conversation, whatever is put out there. But I know Gelman pretty well, and Gelman is super passionate, and he wants to share information, and that information coming from manufacturers, information coming from people he's talking with. And so I just think what I like about the wrestling card community is there's just always a flood of information, always information about sales and where cards are, what's available. And yeah, as you expand and categories grow, it gets harder and harder to operate that like that. But I think that's what a cool part is about wrestling cards in the community around it right now.
Yeah, and I think you tell me if you agree with this too, Brett. Like, even, you know, even with sports cards, obviously now sports cards and the hobby, it's making mainstream news at record clips, especially the last few years, especially since COVID. You know, at one point, you were probably wrong. It wasn't really as cool to be in the hobby as it is, let's say, today. People were reluctant to even say, "Hey, you know, I collect baseball cards or football card, whatever." You know. And I think even with wrestling cards, there was that stigma, whether it was right or wrong. But now I think just with the explosion of everything else, and listen, no one's denying how popular wrestling is. I mean, you see the sold out arenas and the pay per views. But I think too, it's there was sort of a bugaboo, like if someone knew, like, oh, you collect cards. I
Mm.
think we're way past that point. But I think because we're way past that point, it makes it easier to do in that community tighter. And I think maybe because that community remembers when it wasn't like it was like it is now, and how it was a little more like you kind of kept it behind closed doors or to yourself. That maybe that factors in there too.
Yeah, those individuals who were collecting cards when they weren't cool, and especially collecting wrestling cards when they weren't cool, and have been here the whole time, are certainly probably doing pretty well for themselves. Because you know that category is grown, right? New people coming in, passion being shared. You've got, you know, the Netflix deal with WWE. You've obviously got Topps coming in, grabbing the license, which adds a whole nother marketing element to everything. New eyeballs. It's been growing quickly in real time. I'll tell you, I went to WrestleMania in Vegas this year with my best friend. We met when we were 3 or 4 years old, playing with wrestling figures at our brother's YMCA basketball game. Still friends today, best friends. Still talk about wrestling all the time. But we got the hall pass from our wives that, we both turned 40 this year, and it was like, all right, we're going to go to Vegas and be,
Young bucks. You're still young bucks at 40.
over the hill. But yeah, I'll take it, John. But yeah, we went there, and we went to WWE Access and went through and did it all. And I'll tell you what, man, everywhere you turned were wrestling cards, promotion of Topps Chrome. We walked into Allegiant, where the Raiders play, where the event was. And right when I walked in, there was a huge cardboard cutout of a Topps Chrome autograph Rhea Ripley card. And I look around, and there's just promo for cards everywhere. Now, I've been going to wrestling events my entire life. I've never seen anything like that. So part of the growth, right, is people sharing information and people passionate and community organizers like Gelman. But then it's also like you've got a manufacturer who's like going all in on the promotion of new products and exposure to an audience. And what's crazy about wrestling fans is wrestling fans aren't scared of spending money. They'll spend money on tickets, t-shirts, memorabilia, action figures, but cards have never really been a part of that, and now they very much are, and it's fun to see it getting going.
Yeah, and it's important, I think, too, for the sport itself to embrace the hobby, because I think they have to they're not mutually exclusive. I think they need each other, or at least the hobby needs wrestling, maybe more so. But the more people who are into the hobby, the more fans you're gonna have. When I had Gelman on, I talked about this, like, does the sport itself like do enough to promote the fact that, because you mentioned, I'd love to see, when you go to a wrestling event, you come through the door and you get a promo pack of some sort. Uh, and I would venture a guess, and you tell me if I'm right or wrong, Brett. There's people going to get this promo pack who probably don't even realize they're actually wrestling cards. Maybe they're buying the shirts and the memorabilia, and that sort of thing, or the belts and stuff. They don't even realize they're trading cards, and that might be their avenue to know that they exist. And here we have a new wrestling card hobbyist, right? And what's that take, right? It doesn't. I know there's printing and stuff like that, but I mean, just think about what a kid walks through. He's already excited. He's going to watch some of his favorite wrestlers probably perform live in front of him rather than on TV. And then he's handed a pack and maybe doesn't even know cards exist. And I mentioned kids, but this could be adults as well. Kind of your thoughts on maybe seeing some more of that.
Yeah, I think we will see more of that, just based on my observations of how Tops is operating right now. One of the things that I noticed was, they dropped the Cactus Jack version of Tops Chrome while we were at WrestleMania. You could buy it at the show, and you could, resell it the online for, multiples. So like there's that element too of like people like immediately flipping wrestling cards. But it just adds a whole nother element. I think in terms of exposure, one of the things that just like blew my mind seeing this for the first time, but I was like sitting on my couch, I was watching Raw on Netflix, and this was like a few months ago, but they were doing like a matchup. They're like highlighting the main event or the next matchup. And I remember vividly, like one of the performers was Damian Priest, and I can't remember who he was wrestling against, but they showed the matchup as they segued to the commercial, and they were highlighting them in cardboard form. It was like their Topps Chrome cards on the screen, and I was like, that's a pretty cool way to promote the product, like during the show as a part of the show. And so I think in this era of WWE, they're definitely more open to sponsors than they were in a previous era. And I think it's a good opportunity for wrestling cards to get more eyeballs.
Yeah, and I think the Fanatics slash Chops brand, that's kind of, they do a good job of promoting themselves and what they've gotten the license for. Do you think it's as simple as that, where maybe a prior card company just kind of failed in that department, and maybe it hurt? Maybe that's why they don't have the license anymore. I hate to make it as black and white as that, but you almost have to say it like that.
Yeah, what I can say is that whether you like what they're doing or you don't like what they're doing, the approach that Fanatics slash Tops is taking to get attention has never been seen before, and it works in this era of being online, scrolling. It's the way they're approaching influencers, the way they're approaching getting each product line out. Events like Fanatics Fest is something like we haven't seen before. So if you're a company like WWE and they're talking about all this new modern ways to promote and involving talent and using digital channels and different strategies and using influencers, like if your chances are that's probably going to be appetizing for those decision makers. And I couldn't begin to tell you how all those deals went down and why they went down, but Fanatics is a marketing machine. They're a marketing company, and like they promised they were going to do that, and they're delivering on that. At least I've been seeing that in the wrestling card category.
Yeah, no doubt. And I'm not even a wrestling guy per se, Brett, and yet I'm picking that up. So what's that tell you right
There
there?
you go.
I've seen some promos for matches, and like you said, they're using the wrestlers on the cards as part of that promo for that match, and maybe as simple as that. Someone says, "Hey, that's a card. Like, where did those? Who get those? Who makes them? How do I obtain them? That sort of thing." It's I know it's not as simple as that, but something as simple as that can bring a whole bunch of new hobbyists into the fold. And truthfully, I don't know if you agree. I'm assuming that the wrestling hobby is going to grow as a result of the fanatic slash tops influence.
I would imagine so. And one thing that I'll just call out that I've noticed, that just to tell the listeners where this is right now in terms of the promotion side. I've observed this, whenever there's a new product to be opened, you have Triple H, Icon, WWE Hall of Famer, Chief Creative Officer, the guy in charge of the product right now. They do a video of him and Sam Roberts, who's he's got a wrestling podcast, but Triple H just is sitting there opening up the packs and they're talking about the cards. And it's like that never would have been done under the Vince McMahon era. And I just think it's like that content's probably not for everyone, but if you're a kid and you're watching wrestling and you collect cards and never have connected the dots and you see a video of Triple H opening up the new Topps Chrome pack, like it's probably going to get your attention. So I think those sorts of tactics they're employing right now, and I think we're talking about them on a podcast, so they're doing something right.
Yeah, and I'm not a wrestling guy, and I have nothing against it. I'm just not it's not my lane, right? And like you just said, we're both talking about it. So, and I've had even more people on the show to talk about it, and that's saying something right there. All right, so we'll put a little bow on wrestling as it's about to grow even more. Let's talk about your content, stacking slabs. Like you said, I know you said you're after me. I don't look at it like that. I look at it like we're all in the fraternity, right? We all can't graduate the same year, and if the graduation's earlier, it just means I'm older and I'm getting older quicker. Again, we've seen it change, but even your cuts changed. I don't know when. I'll kind of put you, well, not really on the spot, but you're now full time in the hobby, which is awesome. Kind of talk about that progression, how tough of a decision, or maybe not, to do that. Any nervousness to anytime I think anyone I've talked to who's done that, Brett, always said, yeah, it is. It's a little unknown, like it's known and unknown, and were about, but every story is unique and every journey is unique. Kind of for you, kind of talk how you got there and the thoughts about doing that.
Yeah, I'll give the brief overview. So I spent previously the last 15 years of my career working in B2B marketing, mostly for software companies in a marketing function, and worked for companies all shapes and sizes. But throughout that experience, I did I did marketing, and I did content, and I built brands, and I did podcasting. I did a lot of brand building. And during COVID, I got really bored and was working from home, and was thought, I could take what I'm doing professionally and apply it to the hobby. And that's was really the genesis of Stacking Slabs. Is like, I was bored. I just wanted to meet other collectors who've been doing it longer than me, and maybe we can create some content along the way. That turned into a 4-year passion project. And it's like, it's like once you start and you're really into it, you can't really stop. And while I was working, it felt like, kind of two jobs at once. And then 2024, I was working for a startup that I put 3 years in, and it ran out of funding and I lost my job. So it was like the first time in my career I did not have a job, and I had to figure out what I wanted to do. And really, my mindset was around, well, I'm spending all this time with Stacking Slabs and the content, and I made all these connections. Like, what can I do in order to set myself up and be able to do this full time? During that time, as I was plotting, meeting with people, trying to figure out the path, I took a contractor job. And then that contractor job, I didn't want it to, but it ended up becoming a full-time gig while I'm trying to run Stacking Slabs and take it off the ground and do it full time. And then it just reached this crossroads. It was okay. Well, I've made enough of the right connections, and financially, I think I'm in a position to be able to make this happen. Luckily, because I've got an awesome audience and some great sponsors. And I talked to my wife November of last year, and she said, go do it. And next day I got on and talked to my CEO, and felt like maybe blindsided him a little bit, but I left and really never looked back. And so I've been, working for myself, building out Stacking Slabs since November of 2024, and I haven't looked back. I can't tell you how fortunate I feel every day that I can wake up after I take my kids to school and come back to the desk and have just an endless amount of content and things to work on, all hobby related. And I feel very fortunate, and it feels very much like I'm just getting started. This year we have expanded. We've almost got a new show coming out every day. We're starting new shows, niche, folk category specific. WNBA card podcast is one of them that's launched. We just launched the football card podcast. We're working with shows with sponsors. And so there's no in it's the work is, it's never ending. It's never ending. There's formatting, there's the outreach to have these conversations, there's the conversations, and then it's do it all over again. I was looking at my calendar, John, for tomorrow, and I have a mini little vacation with my family, which I haven't taken a vacation in forever, with my family right before the national. And I just looked, and I have 4 recordings all in a row tomorrow. And I'm just like, this is what I signed up for, but I love it. So I feel very fortunate. It's the best. This is the best. I've had many jobs, and I've worked for many awesome companies, many great people. This is easily the best job I've ever had.
Yeah, and you love it. You're passionate about it. I know we throw that word around sometimes too easy, right? Love or passionate, but when you really do, right, it comes through. I think it comes through in your content. I know I get that from you. It's not, there's no phoniness there. It's genuine. You can tell sometimes, when someone's sort of going through the motions. Someone asked me, Brett, like, John, when will you know, like, your podcast is like you're done, like, and it's a real simple answer. I didn't even have to think about it. It's when I turn on the mic and I don't want to, or it's not
Yeah.
fun anymore, or I look at it as like, I'm in the teaching profession by day now, and I love that gig. I'm not going to give it up, even though I probably could with like you with the hobby side, but I love the kids. But if I ever turn like it's like even knowing, hey, I'm gonna come home and I'm gonna have a great conversation, most likely with Brett. Like I look forward to that. If it, and I don't foresee this, but hypothetically, if I would have been thinking like, oh man, I got to talk to Brett, I'd rather jump in my hot tub.
Yeah.
Like if I get to that point, like, and I get sometimes it might be a day. You're just having an off day, like an athlete, right? I went 0 for 4, but if that becomes more like the norm, which I don't ever see that happening. But if it did, that's when I know. And I always tell when I get asked that question, Brett, I always say it have nothing to do with downloads. When I started this show, it wasn't sponsored. It was slow going at first, and then it just sort of built up. I'm sure you know exactly what I'm talking about. And I never did the show to make money. That's what's become a nice
Mhm.
perk of it, but it's still not the real reason. Like if that even went away now, even after getting used to it, I still would do the show. It's more the internal feeling that like I don't want to do this anymore, or I don't want to have this conversation, or I rather do this than that. And if that ever happens again, I don't see that. But if that became the happenstance or the circumstance, then that's all I need. I'll know then, and it'll have nothing to do with all the superficial and financial aspects and that sort of thing. And speaking of sponsors, I know I don't want to. I'm going to assume you get some of this. I know I do, and I've shared this. Some people are critical of that, right? They say, "Oh,
Mm.
you're just doing content for money, or you don't even like or use that product." And for me, I can only speak for myself here, and I want to get your take on this. Any sponsor I've had, SGC is a sponsor of the show. I used SGC before they were a sponsor of the show, and I continue to use them. And I hope I still get to continue to use them. There's some stuff going on there, but what I'm getting as any sponsor around the show, I either use them or would recommend anyone else to use them. I'm not shilling, but anytime you make money, even as a dealer, like I set up at shows as a dealer, and people say, "Oh, you're not a real collector." Because you sell cards. And I'm like, what is the I don't even know what the definition of true collector is. Like, you see it on camera. These are all cards that don't go to the show with me. They're in my PC. So I don't even know what that means. But I guess where I'm being long winded here, but there's a connotation to if you make money, whether that's through sponsorships or selling cards, that it's sort of a bad thing, or you're not pure, or you're not true, or you're not a great person. And I don't know why that is. So again, like, do you ever get that, or you hear that, and like your stance and take on that?
Yeah, I think it's a there's a couple ways to dive into this. I think number 1, when I first set out on my own, I was something that I was concerned about, but I got some feedback from some pretty great people and great sources and be like, "You've spent all this time giving away your time and content for free that everybody should want to support you." And that has been true. And I've always found like the real ones, the people who I want to connect with and communicate have always been just such good advocates and understand it. What I've learned is that people are going to be negative just to be negative, and that negativity can like fester and it can get into your mental state. And I don't know, like the more I've grown and evolved, I've just tried to do whatever I can to ignore that. And also like with like the true collector narrative and people asking questions like, "Why are you selling this card at this show?" or "Why are you posting this online? Didn't you just buy it?" Like I've like said this on some of my content recently. Like, really think like we should like starting point is like you got to focus on yourself. Like you got to focus on yourself, and we're here in a community and we're here to help one another. But like whenever I hear that feedback, I'm always just like wondering like, why aren't you focusing on yourself? Like you're worrying too much about what other people are doing. And like the hobby to me is always about buying, selling, and trading, and you have to sell cards in order to get other cards, and it's just part of it. So I think the community is great. I appreciate all the diversity of opinions. I learned so much. I'm curious, but I also think like there's a lot of very limited mindsets when it comes to your approach. And just because your approach is different than someone else, someone feels the need to criticize it, which is unfortunate. Um, I guess just to like wrap it up, like if you're not, if someone sees you and wants to criticize you, it's like they feel threatened because the way you're approaching content or cards is different than the way they are. And I think that's the best part about the hobby is everyone does it different. And we've got entrepreneurs who are building businesses and we've got people building media companies. And it's like, my mindset is always, unless the individual is doing something nefarious, there's fraud, like support everyone. Like, and it's taken me, John, it's taken me to be off on my own to be a cheerleader for everybody. But I think like my mindset is the more the hobby grows, the more it expands, whether it's stuff that I use, I don't use, or whatever, like the better position it is for me as a small business owner in this hobby. And so it's not like manufactured, it's very genuine. But I think for me, it's been a maturity thing. It's like, yeah, just because this company does this and I don't buy into that doesn't mean I should think negatively of them. They're just trying to carve out a niche that supports a different type of audience in the hobby. And so I think about that a lot. And I just think it's like a little kumbaya, but like support people. Like we're all here. We're all like there's common ground. We're all collecting cards. Like I find it's better to support people than to criticize. But I'm overly optimistic at times, maybe to a fault.
Yeah, well said. I think a lot of that too, Brett, comes from a negative space. Someone's just unhappy and whatever. It might be personal life, job life, or whatever. And it's just easier to maybe take a shot at someone else or a pot shot at someone else. So I kind of look at it like that. I never try to take it too personal. It's not going to necessarily affect what I do. I'm just going to keep going. I'm not going to you're not going to win that debate with that person anyway. It's just going to be a vicious circle that goes on and probably just gets worse as it continues. So I always love feedback. I know you're like that too. I ask for it. Many of the changes with this program have come from other people saying, "Hey, think about this, Sean," or "I don't like this. I love that," that sort of thing. But I don't, like you said, to hobby your way, to each their own. Like you said, if you're doing it above board, you're not ripping anyone off or doing anything illegal. That's what it's about. If the hobby, as the hobby gets bigger and grows, we're in it, right? We're part of that. The old kind of dumb cliche, right? The rising tide raises all ships, right? Well, we're the ships in the hobby tide, whether we feel that way or not. That's just the way it is. And so, like you said, I think that's how I look at it. And just people are going to say whatever they're going to say, and I should be. If they want an explanation, I can give them one. But other than that, I'm just not going to have like an hour debate about it with somebody because no one's going to be better off for it, right? And you're not going to. They've already sort of made up their mind
Yeah.
anyway. And it's like they say, opinions aren't really wrong. Facts can be, but opinions. Someone's going to have that opinion. They're not necessarily wrong, but that's their opinion, and it may differ from mine or yours or both. So it is what it is, right? We got to just do what we think's best, for like you said, for our listeners and for ourselves as well. Being full time, is that I always you have younger kids. I have a 25-year-old. He's not even a kid. He's a young adult. He's still at home. We're working on that, but that's a show for another day. But with younger kids, obviously he was a younger kid. I always joke that like I wouldn't be able to, and I only have one son, but if I did, if this podcast existed when he was a kid, the podcast probably wouldn't existed because I was coaching. It was just very busy. I love that time period. Part of me misses that time period. But I think going full time. Would you say that's made that work life balance easier to navigate because now it's you don't have a job, and then like you said, when it was
Yes.
podcasting with content creation and a job, it was in a sense two jobs.
Yeah, so, my daughter I have a 1.5 year old daughter, I have a 3.5-year-old daughter, and my wife and I are expecting our 3rd daughter at the end of the year, and at
Congratulations.
thank you, yeah, so it's a full house, girl dad, big
You're
time.
you're
Bi
outnumbered.
big time, big time. We're I'm outnumbered here at Stacking Slabs HQ, but yeah, it's been I don't know, something about my kids being young and being around them, like, doing this from home, it's certainly helpful. I think, picking and dropping off at school. Also, like, the balance side, I kinda have a rule. There's exceptions to the rule, but the first 4 years of Stacking Slabs, most of the work I was doing, it was in the evening, so I was lighting the candle on both ends, work and then evening conversations, and, like, I really try to limit that, like, once I go pick up my kids, I try to be done until they go to bed, and, in the evenings, I'm not recording
Yeah,
content, but I
even
usually
listen, I'm gonna stick up for you here too, not to cut you off, but like
yeah.
even with scheduling this, right? We work with those times, and I get it. That's why we have those conversations, and I appreciate that as a content creator and a dad, even though my kid's older now, but I get it. I get it. So go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's fun, like, my wife, she's off on Wednesdays, we're recording this on a Wednesday. When we started to record, she went to pick up the kids, maybe by the time this is over, you'll hear them in the background, but I don't know, I really enjoy being in hobby mode, card mode, and then just going on the other side and then turning into dad. Being able to toggle that back and forth is a lot of fun, and I feel very fortunate for the position I'm in right now.
Yeah, no doubt. And from one dad to another, cherished, when they're young, you don't need me to tell you this, but cherish those moments because you blink and they're teenagers, you blink, they're graduating high school, college, and then, uh, in my case, they're still living at home, like eating everything in the fridge.
Hey, free
Uh,
meals, free meals.
but no, all joking aside, like cherished. It goes quick and time flies. Like we were even talking before we recorded. So not a great segue, but something happened in your neck of the woods
Yeah,
recently. Big hobby news, right? Doesn't matter where the person resides, right? I don't like to like give props to like not good people, but its name's been out there. Brent Lemieux may be a ringleader of the biggest hobby forgery scam. I mean, it's kind of a new story. The dust hasn't even officially settled. He did you called it, I think, a manifesto, kind of a goodbye letter, but not a lot of remorse or remiss in there. So it's basically spilled the beans on everyone involved in him and what he was doing, and then proceeded to commit suicide and not face the music. 45 years old, so around your age, and had young kids as well, and a wife, from what I can gather. And this is going to. He may not be here, but this story continues and is going to be. And even if you don't collect autographs, Brett, this is still affects the hobby, right? It's a bad look for the hobby. People who do collect autographs will probably start looking at their stuff and wondering, like, if I didn't get this in person, am I looking at a genuine, a real McCoy? And people who bought stuff maybe for other people as gifts, or like, did I give something and it's not even real, even though it was, they didn't know that. But it's just a lot of tentacles. Plus, it's just illegal and it's fraud and it's grand theft, all those boxes, and it just it's going to make all the major news stories and feeds, whether it's on your phone, online, or even on TV. It's just a bad look for the hobby, even though 90%, 95% of people are doing it above board in the right way. Just some of your thoughts. I know it hits close to home, almost in your backyard. Just some of your thoughts on this.
yeah, it's when news like this pops up, it's incredible to see how quickly it spreads in the hobby. And most of the time, I'm doing what we're doing now and not as plugged in when breaking news happens. And so I just check my DMs, and a friend of mine sent me the like 4 screenshots in the uh, Facebook group, and I was like, "What's this?" And I started reading it, and then just what caught my attention was the fact that it happened. It was took place in Westfield, Indiana, which is where the Colts training camp is. It's about 20-25 minutes north of me. And you're just reading through it, and it caught me off guard, just being like, this is so incriminating, what's going to happen. And then the next shoe dropped, and you found out that he had committed suicide. And you start thinking about this and just the impact and the ripple effect. And my mindset and mentality is obviously horrible situation, impacts everybody. I think one of the observations I made is just how quickly the members of this community go to talk about what happened. Like it was like hours from the story really breaking, and it was like there were reels up, everyone had opinions and stuff. And I'm like starting to watch this, and it had taken over the hobby. And I'm like, what's like, are people just getting up and talking about this and they actually have more information that they want to share? Or are they just trying to get attention? So that was like a battle I had in my mind. I was like, I try to like stay away because I was like, I don't know what to believe. And so I was just waiting for like news outlets to start covering it, which they did. And I was reading those articles. And yeah, it's unfortunate. It seems like we are cool for a while, and then a year or 2 years passes and some incident happens. And I don't think at this point we know the exact magnitude. Obviously, like he alluded to some numbers, and we'll see like when the dust settles what's true and what's not true. But yeah, unfortunate situation. And I think my biggest takeaway is you got to be vigilant. Like there is always going to be someone out there in this space that's unregulated trying to take advantage of somebody else. And it's simple and it's basic feedback, but like I think our community does a really good job of this, especially when there's like theft at like hobby shops. But if something happens and someone like talks about it, like share the information, especially if it's like true information, it can help someone out. And I just think, yeah, I think just be vigilant because you never know. And so, yeah, very unfortunate situation. I'm still waiting for the fallout on kind of what else is going to come out on this.
Yeah, and keep in mind too, you know this, you've done this long enough. I mean, this isn't going to be just a couple month thing. This is going to be years that stuff is going to come out and be related to it and attached to it. I think within we're recording this before the national. We're a week away. I think there's this too. There's people who set up at the national who that's all they deal with is autograph memorabilia. They don't do cards, and they may be 100% legit, great, wholesome people, and because of the timing of this, when the story, and you can't control that, but because of the timing of this, they're going to have to answer a lot of questions. Uh, Even though that you say, well, they should be able to, like, hey, where did it, how'd you get this? But even more so now, and they're going to sort of be looked at maybe more suspiciously than they should even be because of someone else's action. So I think of that, those folks, and like how it's sort of unfair to that group who are doing it the right way and legitimately, and but because of one, it's like breaking. You get a bad breaker, and we look at every breaker as the same cookie cutter, and we both know that's not how it actually is. But some people sort of you throw the baby out with the bathwater, as they say, right? It's just everything's bad, and so that I think about that. I think about the people who already made purchases that got duped, and their hard-earned money as well. So hopefully, Fanatics is saying that he inflated some of the numbers he was throwing around. Hopefully that's the case, so the damage is minimized. But it's still bad. It's still a big story, and it's gonna probably go on for who knows how long. So I don't know what. I don't want to beat a dead horse. It's making the rounds. I'm sure you like you. I didn't even post anything about it. I
Yeah.
just will talk about it if I'm talking with someone. We're both football guys. Let's segue in. I don't know if this segueing into something better or not. You're a Colts fan. I'm a Steeler fan. We both got quarterback problems as fans of those teams. We have a over the hill aged veteran and Aaron Rodgers who waited to the last minute to decide he was going to play. You have a younger guy in Anthony Richardson, accuracy issues, some health issues, the way he plays. You signed, not I say you, but the Colts signed Daniel Jones. I think they saw that 2022 season and
That's right.
based their sign. They got him cheap. In their defense, they're not paying him a boatload of money. It's not a bad signing when you look at the big picture and what he's actually costing. You're a season ticket holder. Just I'm not going to talk about the Steelers. That's a whole show in itself. But with you being on, I know we always talk some football. Kind of your thoughts on what's going on, with your Colts.
Yeah, so as we're recording this, actually was the first day of training camp, so it's very
Yep.
timely. And it's been funny, John. I follow the team and everything happening year round. I feel very less connected because I'm coming off of, as a Pacers fan, the finals run and just the magical season that didn't quite end the way we wanted to, but was just great. And so a lot of my energy was there, and now I'm like shifting that focus to football. And I will say this, like, post Luck era, I have probably set unrealistic expectations for myself as a fan, and I'm not doing that this year. I'm going in with the lowest expectations possible and hoping that it changes. I think just the surrounding team, there is a ton of talent on both sides of the ball. You've got, like, from a offensive perspective, you've got Michael Pittman Jr., you've got Josh Downs, who's got the third most catches in the first two seasons in Colts history. You've got Alec Pierce, who led the league in yards per catch last year. You got Jonathan Taylor, who's been one of the most efficient running
I
backs
love
since
it. I'm a
he's my
huge.
favorite player.
Yeah,
My
I'm a
favorite player.
Steelers guy, but like I follow him. I play fantasy football too, but I do love. I don't think he gets enough credit for how
He
good
doesn't.
he is. But
He
go ahead.
doesn't. So you got to surround these surrounding pieces. You got talent defensively, but the question mark, right, is the quarterback. And if you don't have a quarterback, you're not going very far. And I think I'm interested to see if Anthony Richardson could rise to the occasion with this quarterback battle. I think Daniel Jones, especially because of how bad last year went, I do think, like, obviously his stock is very, very low, but I think there are some nice things that he can do. So I think it all comes down to the progress of Richardson and what happens. And I think the Colts they're viewing him as a long-term project. And the accuracy issues are very true. It's the most frustrating thing about his game. But then he has moments like last year where he has a fourth quarter drive that was lights out, game-winning touchdown against the Jets, and he had another one against the Patriots. So, like, he has had these moments, and you're just, as Colts fans, you're just hoping, like, okay, he can piece it all together. Because John, I was in Lucas Oil for the first game of last season against the Texans, and that Richardson throw everyone's seen where he throws it off his back foot. And I've seen Manning play every year. I've seen Luck play his whole career every year. And I have never seen anybody make a pass like that. So the talent is there, but it takes more than just talent to be a successful quarterback. So we'll see. My expectations are low. I'm going to keep it that way, and I hope that they exceed them as we go into this year.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Do you think, real quick? I mean, do you think this is like the make or break year? Like, if he struggles again, you think they move on from him, or do you think there's more time there? I don't know all the
Yeah,
contract situation too
yeah. I
much.
think he's got. I think he's got. Before they have to pay him, he's got another year, so there'll be some time, and I think that's why they're trying to be delicate with the situation, and why they're trying to bring in Jones and bring in some competition. But certainly a very, very important year. Like, anybody who's a fan of the Colts or a fan of Richardson wants to see some progress. And it's crazy. The progress really is the short passes, the accuracy. It's the easy stuff that you think most of the guys can do is the stuff that he really needs to focus on. But I think, like, I know he's got some slack, but I think genuinely he is a good kid. And I think he came into the league really early. And I think he's always had this freakish ability. And it just takes some time and learning, and we'll see if he can absorb it all. I believe Shane Steichen's a really good coach for him. I think it's a good fit. And I'm not saying he's going to go be a Pro Bowler or All Pro or we're going to the Super Bowl, but I think he's got enough intangibles to take that next step. Will it happen? We'll see.
Yeah, and it's funny as I'm a Steeler fan, but I'm a football fan, right? I keep tabs on all these storylines, so I'm going to be interested. Maybe not as much as you, but kind of in that mix, right?
I'll
And
be interested to
listen,
watch your Steelers and see what Aaron Rodgers can do. I got it.
well,
They re-signed Watt. They got Rodgers in there. They're whether you like it or not, they are going all in on this season. So we'll see what happens.
yeah, they are. They are. Like you, I'm keeping the expectations
Good.
tempered,
Smart.
just because we haven't won a playoff game in 9 years, Brett. Like, and then when we've made it, we get run out of the gym. We're not even competitive. So, like Tomlin, and I like him. I don't love him. And I know, well, if he was fired, he'd rehire him, and that's probably all true. But it's like, what have you done lately? I think he's still living off that Arizona Cardinals Super Bowl win, and that just seems like I was a young guy then. Let's just put it that way. That was a long time ago. So it'll be interesting to see. They are spending some money, and so I can't fault them there. They've done some unstealer like things with trades and things like that. So I'm kind of going in open minded, but I'm not expecting people. There's Steeler fans that walk around like we're winning the Super Bowl this year. I'm not one of those guys. I've seen this movie too many times
Yes.
before. Would it be nice? Of course, as a fan, but I'm not expecting that, and that way I'm not that disappointed when it doesn't happen. But always fun to have you on, Brett. I always give the guest the last word. Share your social media, where people can catch Stacking Slabs and other things that you're doing there.
Yep, Stacking Slabs across all social channels. Spend a lot of time on Instagram. You can go to Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcast. Just look up Stacking Slabs, hit follow, and you'll get access to kind of the new content, new shows that are coming out. Publishing right now as we record this every day but Sunday. So there's something new coming out, and it's different flavors for different types of collectors with starting new shows. New hosts are on there. So yeah, come check it out and shoot me a message. I would love to hear from you.
Yeah, awesome stuff. I promise it won't be 2 years to have you back on. We might have to just do a yearly show where we talk about how our football teams did or didn't do. Commiserate.
We'll have to bring some Kleenexes, John.
Yeah, well, we'll take turns. One year you bring them, the next year
Yeah.
I will. Well, Brett, always a pleasure, man. Thank you.
Yeah, I love what you do, John. Always appreciate it. Thanks so much for having me back on.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.